Hi, Matt.
What's up, Jamie?
Thanks so much for joining us. It's
Yeah,
always
my pleasure.
awesome
My pleasure.
to hear from you. A little bit about Matt. He's going to be talking about 50 million in sales, just working with investors. So Matt is the founder of Team Roar. He's a veteran Air Force fighter pilot and cancer survivor. He has over 100 million in sales over the last 3 years, 50 million just last year alone. And Matt's investment portfolio consists of about 330 multifamily and RV park units. So, and you're in Florida, that's where he is based. So, but I know you invest all over various states, correct?
Yeah. We're just about to do a deal in Austin, actually. So in Texas.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just go ahead and take it away.
Sweet, awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Jamie. Always good to see you and Chris and everything. And I love how you guys are doing this consistently. So yeah, big picture. So 50 million in sales this past year, working with investors. So that's kind of the highlight. What I'm going to focus on is for those agents out there, or agent investors or investor agents who are really trying to figure out how to kind of take their game up another level. Like you said, this past year was a stellar year. We did 90. I personally did 93 deals at around 50 million. It was my third full year as an agent. Really, my first year as a full-time agent, because prior to that, I was a pilot. As of right now, and just to clarify, last year we bought 330 doors, but I had another 120 or doors prior to that. So overall, now we have about 450 doors under my belt as an investor. So definitely looking forward to the growth of 2022 and hopefully continuing the ride from there. So background on me, who am I? This is me. My big why is my family. Basically, my wife, my 4 kids. That's us on the beaches in Destin. So every year we have a tradition where after we open presents on Christmas, we go down to the beach and we make a little sandman on the beach. And that was us this year. Just loving life, basically. Really loving where we live, and it's absolutely stellar. They're definitely my true motivation for kind of the things I do, and my big reason why. So like everyone consistently says, definitely find your motivation, your passion, and the reason why you do what you do, because it's very tough to wake up and work when you don't have motivation. You got to have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. So further background on me, I was a fighter pilot. As far as my background, like you said, that's me on the top left. It's with my F-35. I flew F-35s and F-15s. And while I was in the military, I took away quite a few lessons I learned. One of the big ones was work ethic, though. As a fighter pilot in the military, even in order to get to that level through undergraduate pilot training and then fighter pilot training, it's grueling, and you have to learn to be able to just put your head down and put your nose to the grindstone and just work. 14, 16, 18-hour days were not uncommon in that world. So the whole kind of grind mentality, which a lot of people poo-poo, I was taught that in that culture. And I think there's definitely a time and a place for it, to kind of have that kind of work ethic, to be able to outwork the people around you. I think, was it Michael Jordan? He says, he's going to be the one, or no, it's not. I think it was Will Smith says he's going to outwork anyone around him, which is true, right? If you're willing to do the work, you're going to see the success out of it. In the military as well, we traveled around the world, which was great. We lived in England for 3 years, and I found a passion for travel, and that's another thing that really kind of gets me going, and another motivation for me to kind of do the things that I do, traveling around Europe. And obviously not much travel recently now. I hate traveling with a mask. We're down here in Florida, where we like to say we opted out of COVID. I say that jokingly, but it's been nice to have a little bit more lax freedom down here compared to the rest of the country. One other thing that I really took away from my times in the military is really 3 attributes to a lot of fighter pilots in general, and they are the fact that they're humble, they're credible, and they're approachable. If you hold those attributes throughout various aspects of your real estate career or career in general, I think it's just going to do you well. As a real estate investor, if I approach other investors that I'm trying to raise money for, or for various deals I'm doing, if I approach it humbly, credibly, and that I'm an approachable person that people are willing to work with me, not some arrogant dude, I think you'll see more success out of it. Same thing as a real estate agent. So those are 3 kind of attributes I definitely try to live by on a daily basis. So yeah, I flew fighter pilots for about 11 years. And after that, about 3 years ago, I got diagnosed with cancer out of the blue. At the time, I was one of the youngest pilots about to go to Top Gun training on the very newest fighter jet, basically literally on the top of the world with my career as a young buck trying to make it happen. I was super excited. While I was out in Las Vegas, just kind of got tired and felt a little bit funky. So I went to my doctor, and we ended up finding that I had 9 tumors in my chest. So over the next 2 weeks, had to get, heart surgery, and then chemotherapy started. And then here I am, a couple months later in the midst of chemotherapy with no hair. So it's one of those things of, it was a terrible experience, but what I learned out of it was there's always a silver lining in every situation. So learning to deal with these unexpected situations and always trying to find the positive in them is definitely an attribute that is pretty crucial when it comes to real estate investing or real estate sales, because there's going to be constantly unexpected surprises, and you need to be able to roll with the punches and figure out how you're going to make lemon out of lemonade, make lemonade out of lemons, whatever. From there, the other thing I learned with the whole cancer situation was the need for a strong community. When you're dealing with things, whether good, bad, or indifferent, you want to make sure that you have that strong support network behind you. To deal with something like cancer, it'd be much more difficult if I was dealing with it by myself. And so having my squadron around me, having my network with my church and my other friends, like it was a big deal to have them around, and it made that experience so much better because I had that. And you'll see, as I talk now with the rest of the stuff, I do that with the real estate side as well. So I've developed a real estate team, a nice, strong, tight-knit community where we help each other out. With my investments, I have a lot of partnerships. All of my investments are through partnerships, because I find that even if you develop a partnership right, the amount you lose by giving into the partnership should pale in comparison to the amount you gain as the partnership as a whole. And so that's the sense of having a strong community is big for me. And it goes back to the fighter pilot days as well. In the fighter pilot community, we have these squadrons where, you're prepared to die for each other if needed for the common good. And it's not a dire situation in real estate, luckily, but having that same kind of mentality is pretty huge. And then obviously going through a life event like that is you learn to appreciate things more. Whether it's the small, simple things or again, appreciate the fact that you're able to see the silver lining in crappy situations. It's been awesome. So yeah, anyways, family, going into fighter pilot, and then I had cancer, and then really that transitioned me into real estate. While I was doing chemotherapy, I had some of my fighter pilot buddies who introduced me to Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then I was also introduced to Bigger Pockets, and then from there I just got hooked on it. So for me, like now we're going to transition to 3 years ago, I knew nothing about real estate. I had no indication that I even wanted to do real estate. I didn't really know much about it, to now doing 50 million in sales. And so I'll kind of walk you through the way I think is a pretty good building blocks to get there. So the first and foremost for me is education, without a doubt. So the education aspect was crucial. So while I was doing chemotherapy at the hospital, I went from studying Russian and Chinese fighter pilot tactics and U.S. American different tactics, techniques, and procedures, to all of my time and effort went to focusing on real estate tactics and real estate knowledge. And so where should you focus your efforts as either a newer agent want to focusing on investors, or as an experienced agent who wants to kind of start to get into the investor mix, is you have to have that baseline knowledge as an investor agent. So you need to have a knowledge in investing, in sales, in negotiating, in mindset, and personal development. It's not just one specific book. I say agenting here. I say it jokingly. It's like you just need to be a good, well-rounded agent, basically, but also a good, well-rounded investor on the education side. Even if you don't invest in mobile home parks like Brant Phillips does, I think you should have at least a baseline knowledge of how they operate. From there, the next bullet here is learning the lingo, because as you learn the lingo, that's going to help you actually interact with the investors more. But this is step one, is again getting that baseline education, which is crucial. There's tons of sources out there for where you can gain this knowledge. Books obviously are huge. There's a ton of books. Podcasts out there are endless. Forums online forums are great. Social media, blogs, YouTube has great content. There's tons of sources out there for education. And what I'll say for that aspect is, it's tough. It's almost overwhelming when you say, okay, I want to learn real estate. Like, okay, I want to be an investor agent. Great. Like, how do you do that? What do you do? What I would recommend is find someone who's, 2 or 3 steps ahead of you, and just ask them, where should I focus my energy and my effort? And if you don't have someone, just pick something and start going with it. At least start taking action. But the ideal situation for you to efficiently gain your education is to hang on the coattails of someone who's a few steps ahead of you, and just, ask them for advice. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel in this space, which is great. The other aspect here is having a growth mindset when it comes to education. You always want to be learning. You never want to be the agent who you call and you're asking about something with a contract, and they say, well, honey, I've been doing this for 30 years and I know I've seen it all. And you're like, okay, well, clearly that agent who says things like that, they have a scarcity mindset, right? They think they know everything in the game, and it's really disheartening to hear people say that. But if you have the mentality of a growth mindset where you realize you're never going to know everything and you're always trying to learn, it's just going to benefit you for the long run and hopefully keep you humble as well. So you're not going to be that kind of arrogant agent. So anyways, that's the education piece. I think education is huge. That's the baseline where everything else is built upon. You can talk intelligently to investors, to other agents, and you have the knowledge to back it up. So anyway, that's the first part. And from here, what I highlighted on the right hand side is education transitioning into the next point, which is networking. So the networking aspect is how you're going to grow next. So you start with the baseline education foundation, and then from there you want to start to utilize it by talking to people. By getting yourself out there. Realize that the networking side of the house, there is local and national kind of exposure that you can gain, whether it's through online, forums like Bigger Pockets or various Facebook groups, or there's the local belly to belly meetups as well. And I highly encourage you to get involved in both. Don't just be that one-stop shop of like, hey, I'm only involved in my local stuff, or I'm only involved in this national stage. Try to be involved in both to be that well-rounded investor agent to help people around there. Like I said, there's local RIAs, so local real estate investor associations. There's local meetups you can do. There's regional and national seminars you can attend for that more belly-to-belly interaction. And if you don't have these things, start your own. Like what Chris and Jamie have done here, I think it's fantastic. Having this whole invested agent concept. Now, while it's not direct networking with each other, it is a community that he's developing, which is fantastic. Local meetups. I started my own local meetup, even though there was already a pretty solid local meetup. I wanted to do mine just a little bit differently, so I put it in a different town, and I had my own meetup that I started. And the moment you start being the one who started the meetup, or the one who runs the meetup, or the RIA, or the seminar, the local seminar, or whatever it happens to be, you instantly gain credibility. So when I started my meetup, I didn't have any investments. I maybe sold one house. I had very limited experience, but I was putting myself out there in a position of authority. But really, it's one more credibility indicator that your clients and investors are going to be able to lean on and want to look to you. So as the person who runs the meetup, they're going to give you deals, or they're going to ask for your advice, and you're going to be able to gain momentum quicker that way. Also, as a brand new agent or as a brand new investor, leaning on these meetups is great, because you gain secondhand experience. So, when you're around people who smoke, you get secondhand smoke, right? But when you're around investors who talk about their experiences, you gain secondhand experience. And so when I talk to people now, as a new agent, when I was talking to people, I didn't have much experience in many deals. I could talk to people and say, hey, here's the knowledge I had, because I built the knowledge. Then I could show it with a real world example that I've learned in the local meetup. Say, oh yeah, I have a friend of mine she's done a flip with the 1031 exchange and whatever. This is how they kind of coordinate it all. And so it's nice to slowly kind of, it's not your experience, and definitely don't pretend that you're the person in the stories, but it's one more way to kind of leverage other people's experience for your own benefit, which is great. I will also encourage you, if you're trying to be an investor agent, to try to find those niche networks as much as you can. On the top right here, this is a presentation that I did for a group of ER doctors up in Pennsylvania. And so, I did a perspective of a fighter pilot on various things. It was a cancer thing, and as well as the effects of like pulling G's on your body and like the physiological effects of that. But you better believe at the end of that, I threw in some nuggets of real estate, right? So, hey, I also, guys, I'm a syndicator. I do this. Hey, I do sales. So if you're looking to, offset your income through, some tax savings down in Florida, here's some short-term rentals you might be able to invest in. So always throwing those nuggets in. And the moment you're able to get into these groups of high network individuals, whether it's, some doctor collective that 20, 30, 40 doctors that just meet regularly and talk about investments, or attorneys or pilots or whatever happens to be for these various groups, try to be your guy for that group. Try to be the guy for that group. You know what I mean? And it's the moment you can do that, it can really be beneficial as more and more clients want to work with you as you add value to their life. The other thing to consider is the fact that strong relationships breed more relationships. And so here's an example that I did. This is literally, so 1 month ago, I got a message on Bigger Pockets from a client saying, hey, I want to start working, I'm looking for short-term rental in Destin. Are you looking to take on any more clients, basically? So this person contacted me about a month ago. We've stayed in touch. I've sent him some stuff, and we've had some good conversations. He came out and visited. While he was visiting in town, his friend was also in town, and so I met his friend. And then his friend, we got connected. I got his number. His friend also connected me with his friend. So now 3 tiers deep from this first investor. And just yesterday, I locked up a contract with the third tier, so the friend of the friend. I locked up yesterday here for 1.1 million. They were asking 1.2, and we locked this up literally yesterday. So focusing on relationships rather than transactions. If I focused only on transactions with that first person here who messaged me, and the fact that we haven't gotten them under contract yet, and I only cared about the transaction, I kind of just shirked it. I wouldn't have this other one under contract now. So I focus on the relationship, focus on adding value as much as I can. Because I know referrals, especially within the investor community, referrals go a massive way. And so you want to continue to build that momentum up as much as you can. So just a small example of why networking and building strong relationships is huge. All right. So like I said, at the end there, adding value is really one of the massive contributing factors to success as an investor agent. So as an investor agent, we do not just open doors, right? We have to be proactive. We have to bring more to the table. Gone are the days of our value as agents are, hey, you come meet me at the brokerage, and I'm going to show you the big book of houses that are available for sale. Like, that doesn't exist anymore, right? Most public, through Zillow and Trulia and Redfin, they have 99% of the same information that we do as real estate agents when it comes to what's available on the market. So our value has to lie in other places, right? We have to be, as an investor agent, you have to go above and beyond without being asked. Like, for instance, focused farming is one example that I threw here, where I had a client. She wanted a 4-bedroom townhouse in a specific townhouse community, and so the reason I knew that's what she wanted, as an agent, you want to figure out what the needs and the goals are of your client. Some clients are very, very specific in what they want. And she was very specific. And it's nice when they're not specific, because I narrowed it down. I said, okay, this is exactly what you want. Great. I'm going to go above and beyond. There's nothing on the market right now. I'm going to start calling every 4-bedroom townhouse in this community to see if I can make something happen. And we were able to. I found someone who was willing to sell. We made a deal happen off market, and it was fantastic. So that willingness to go above and beyond as an investor agent is definitely a crucial aspect of it. I just had a conversation. This is Tuesday, so 2 days ago. This is a client that who called me. He said, this is the best call I've had with an agent trying to look for short-term rentals. Buy and try soon. He has $230,000 cash. He's just asking me for what are the best options to work with. You know what I mean? So it's nice to hear things like that. Not to boast or brag, but that's the type of thing you want to hear. Now, for me as an agent, when I hear things like that, I almost feel like, oh crap, like I really need to live up to the fact that he thinks, I'm better than the average agent. So I really want to make sure I really live up to his expectations. So it makes me almost anxious and nervous that I really want to continue to do more and more and more for this client. An investor agent is also a creative agent. So as you go to these real estate investment associations and these meetups, you're going to start to learn as many creative tips and techniques as you can to make deals happen. It also goes back to our baseline knowledge discussion. The more you read, the more podcasts you listen to, the more knowledge you're going to have to make deals happen, basically. Owner financing, seller carrybacks, off-market deals. I just had one literally. We got under contract a month ago. And we just closed yesterday on this deal. So this deal we closed yesterday. They were asking $810,000. We offered $670,000 because I know it was valued way too high. We got under contract at $750,000. So we got under contract, $60,000 below list. So happy so far. From there, I was prepping the listing agent and my buyer that this will definitely appraise low. Like, without a doubt in my mind, this deal will appraise low. So the entire time we're preparing. So I told the listing agent, please prepare your seller for a low appraisal so we can just not have super drama. We can make this deal happen. Under contract at $750,000. We got the appraisal back about a week ago, appraised at $634,000. So $116,000 short. Now, for a normal agent who's not thinking creatively, that's probably a deal breaker. So what do I do? Number one, I initially go to the listing agent and say, hey man, I'm looking for a price drop, $634,000. Can you do it? And he's like, probably not. I'll ask. And obviously the seller said, no, I'm not going to drop to $634,000. That's $116,000. And so I talked to my buyer. I asked him how much he's willing to come out of pocket over the appraised value. He said $8,000. I said, sweet. Sounds good. And so we got it. I came back to the seller and I said, okay, we can come out to you. We can come up to $642,000, which is still well short of the goal. And at that point, the listing agent had talked with the seller. He said the bottom line for my seller is $670,000, which oddly enough was our initial price. But he said $670,000 is the bottom line for my seller. I said, okay, well, we're still $28,000 off. My buyer doesn't have the cash to cover that difference. And again, if you were a normal agent in this situation, you'd be like, well, crap, man, I'll send you the cancellation. We'll try another day. Sorry, good luck. But we don't think that way as investor agents. We think creatively. And so we came to an agreement where the seller had a seller carryback. He covered that $28,000 note via a promissory note between the seller and the buyer. We closed at $642,000, but he had an additional promissory note for it via essentially a second mortgage that we're going to take care of off down the road. So, thinking creatively as much as you can to make deals happen. And you can only think creatively if you're out there learning through experience of others or having that baseline knowledge, which is crucial. So thinking about that is big. Also realize while we're not lawyers, we're not CPAs, we're not investment advisors. Well, at least I'm not. You may be out there. So I can't give tax advice or law advice or investment advice necessarily. And I always give that caveat. I still want to have the baseline knowledge to add the value to give to my clients. I had a client who wasn't aware of the benefits of a cost segregation study on a short-term rental. He bought a short-term rental for roughly $2 million. He did a cost segregation study because I gave him the advice that it may be a benefit to him to do it. He bought this short-term rental for $2 million, 10% down, so $200,000 as a down payment. Via the cost segregation study, I think he was able to get a write-off of around, I think it was like $600,000 in year one. So $600,000 in year one, which equated to him as like a 35% tax bracket guy to roughly $200,000 in tax savings. So he was able to save $200,000 in taxes and spend that same money that he would have given Uncle Sam. He then put on a down payment on a house, and now he has a cash flowing asset rather than paying Uncle Sam that money. So like thinking creatively, knowing these different tips and techniques to help your clients out and adding value to them is huge. It's absolutely huge. 1031 exchanges, cost segregation studies, partnership structures is a big one as well. Commonly like, should I buy under my own name or should I buy under an LLC? Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to give you any advice. Here's what I've heard. Talk to a lawyer and get some advice from them for that side of the house. As an agent, a lot of my business is short-term rentals, and so you better believe I have a pretty good network of cleaners and handymen and all various vendors that my clients need to self-manage when they purchase here. I want to get them set up for success, so they can start to thrive, and hopefully that'll breed either more deals with them or more relationships with their friends as they see success with their friends. So anyways, that's one thing there. And the other thing is, don't sweat the small stuff. As an investor, as an investor agent, one of your big value adds is the fact that you can continue to see the big picture, right? Oftentimes investors they might lose the forest through the trees, right? They might get hung up on some little deal, especially before closing, which is when people typically get pretty emotional. So don't sweat the small stuff and try to be, when I was a fighter pilot, I'd be overhead in Afghanistan and people would be getting shot at down below. But you had to be the cool, calm, collect voice when people say, hey, we have an engagement down here. Big copy. I'll be there soon. Like you want them to feel like you are that calm, cool, collect guy in the sky, ready to help them out. Same thing here as the agent, as they're kind of just feeling like they're super stressed. Just be the calm, cooling person out there. If someone, say a seller, this happened 2 weeks ago. We had a seller who took the washer and dryer when he left out of this investment property when he shouldn't have in the contract. And the seller was he was being irate about it. So I said, whatever, just keep it. And the other agent and I, we just split a new washer and dryer. Like I'm not gonna lose a deal over like a washer and dryer. Like it's silly, right? That's a small thing that you shouldn't lose sleep over. Anyway, that's an example for adding value there. The next thing is credibility through experience. So one of the best ways as an investor agent, if you want to work with investors, for them to trust you and to want to work with you, is to have investments yourself, right? Be that investor and the agent. So try to take action and walk the walk. So you learn to talk the talk back through the education side, but now you gotten to the point where you're getting secondary experience, but now it's time to start taking action and get your own experience. You need to have the mentality of either you succeed or you learn. There's no failing in this game, right? Like I've had flips. My very first flip, right? $250 of my own money is what I put into it. I used other people's money and other people's time to make it happen. As a brand new novice green investor, that $250 personally I turned into $15,000. Great ROI, loved it. The next flip, I lost $30,000. So like I didn't think of that as a failure though. I learned a massive amount of lessons from that second failure, right? And I learned that I'm going to take care of my investors, because I had investors in that second deal, but you better believe they didn't lose any money. They got their money and their interest, but I'm the one who lost the money. So just having that mentality to get through the experiences you gain is going to be huge of learning or succeeding. I've only been doing this for 3 years. I just finished my third year, basically. I've been involved in wholesaling, flipping, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, multifamily, mobile home, and RV parks that I've owned. I've not gotten into self-storage space. I've done syndications as a limited partner, as a general partner. So you can definitely get involved here. Now, am I a full-time flipper or wholesaler? No, I've realized I don't like wholesaling. I don't like flipping unless the profit margin's massive and it's worth my time and stress. They're a little bit too stressful for me. I love short-term rentals. Long-term rentals just don't cut the cake for me for traditional single-family long-term rentals. Multifamily, I love multifamily. That's why I'm getting more into syndications. That's why I have 450 plus units and another 110 units under contract right now. The mobile home and RV parks, like Brant Phillips was talking earlier, I have a 60 unit RV park and it's fantastic. The cash flow is truly an ATM. It's fantastic. So now as I gain this experience, obviously people are going to have, it's more, every investment you do is more credibility, right? More people want to talk to you and work with you because you have that wealth of knowledge that you can gain more quickly than you realize. And if you feel like you're out of it, realize you can leverage other people's money and other people's time to grow your own credibility, your own experiences. So don't feel like you need to do it all on your own. I know Don Costa earlier, he's a big proponent of using other people's money to grow, because you're going to run out of money pretty quickly. And that's exactly the mentality I have. You have to leverage other people to grow if you want to grow rapidly. So that's my big takeaway for getting that experience to have the credibility for more investors to want to work with you as an agent. And lastly, you really just have to commit. You have to completely and fully and utterly commit. The last time for the last invested agent seminar we had, I talked about lighting your real estate afterburner, which I equated to basically when I'm in a fighter jet and I'm about to take off, I don't put the power up, halfway and be like, okay, cool. I hope we take off by the end of the runway. If you have that mentality in your career, you're not gonna take off, right? You need to light the wick, put the throttle in full afterburner and just take off. Get as much thrust as you can now and take off out of there. Now realize, what is that going to do to you? That's going to temporarily imbalance your life. You're going to have the imbalance in your life. But just like a sprinter leans forward, almost falling on his face before the race starts, you need to do the same thing in your career. Now, yes, you need to prepare your loved ones and for the fact that, hey, for the next year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, hopefully not more than 5 years, that you need to go full afterburner. You need to imbalance your life if you want this to really take off. And let them know, so what does that mean? I'm going to change my lifestyle. I'm going to start eating more healthy and working out. If you're not working out, you're not going to have the energy you need to work 12, 14, 16-hour days, consistently focusing on real estate that's required to really get this success, this instant success. You need to cut out the time sucks. For sure, without a doubt, you need to cut out this time sucks early on. You better believe early on, for my first year or two in real estate, very little TV was watched. Before I would be a big binge watcher of TV. Now that I'm kind of at altitude or almost getting to altitude, I watch TV once in a while with my wife. We'll binge watch a show here and there, but you need to get rid of the time sucks. You have to remove them. And then beyond that, consistency. Consistency is so massive. You can't go to the gym and get a 6-pack abs by just going and doing 200 sit-ups in one day, right? It's going to be consistently doing the workouts you needed required for a month or 2 or 3 or 4 or a year or 2 or 3 or 4 to see those changes. And then just realize the last point here is this is a huge momentum gain. So just like when you're building, a snowman, you're pushing the ball to get the base for the snowman, you can push it. And it's easy to push it as the momentum goes. But the moment you stop and you have this massive amount of snow in front of you, it's really hard to move that thing because the momentum is now stopped. And the same thing in this game. As your momentum builds, you want to keep putting fuel on that fire and keep your career going. So do what you need to do to leverage other people's time, other people's money, hire out as you need to, delegate as needed to keep that momentum going. And build that team to see that success down the road. So you definitely have to completely commit in this game to make it happen. So overall, like I said, I think you have to have the knowledge piece. You have to have the networking. You got to add value. You have to really completely commit in this game if you really want to be a successful investor agent. Like I said, my 3rd year, 3 years ago, I didn't know anything about real estate. And this was my first full year. I retired from the military in 2020. So 2021 was my first full year and was able to achieve about 50 million in sales. So super happy with that. I'm always here if you guys have any questions. I'm out of Destin, Florida. My contact info is up there, but happy to help however I can, guys.
Thanks so much, Matt. Seeing your meteoric rise has been amazing, but I know that's really just a testament to your work ethic and your ability to solve problems for other people and give value first. So it's been amazing. You got a lot of love in the comments,
good.
especially over in the YouTube side. Well, one David asked, because we have just a couple of minutes, but David asked, where did you learn about RV parks and investing in RV parks?
So initially, actually, Brant was the one who even gave me the idea that it was intriguing. I went through a a local real estate investment association had a focused group. Basically, it was education, 6 months commercial education, basically, that I signed up for. So I paid $3,000 for 6 months. We met once a month to just talk about commercial real estate. So it was multifamily real estate, it was RV parks, mobile home parks. So we kind of covered like a plethora of commercial real estate opportunities. And in that, some of the guys who ran it, they owned some mobile homes and RV parks. And so that's where I got my initial knowledge. There's some great podcasts out there. Mobile home, I think it's just called Mobile Home Park Investor Podcast. There's some good stuff there. There's some really great Bigger Pockets forums in the Bigger Pocket space as well. I haven't actually read any specific books on mobile home park investing. Most of my knowledge has been through experience with other investors who have done it, or podcast or forums in that space.
Yeah, a lot of those real niche stuff. I don't even know if there probably are.
I'm sure there are.
I'm sure there has. Brandon Turner written a book on?
Well, his second book on commercial real estate is going to be coming out shortly. They had part 1, which was like smaller commercial. I think the second one's going to talk about mobile home parks. So expect that.
Yeah, cool. And if not, you've got maybe you should write one. So, well, Matt, thank you so much. You've been a huge leader to your team and the agents and investors that you've worked with over the years. And I know a lot of people really appreciated your presentation here. So give it up for Matt in the chat. Fire, hearts. Appreciate it. Thanks, Matt. And I'll talk to you again soon.
Man, pleasure. For sure. We'll see you guys.